So the Ireland squad will be named on Wednesday coming. You said something interesting there. We're light at centre. Okay. I'm having to
I
acclimatise.
disagree, but it was.
I'm acclimatising to that because, we've had a half decade where that was a quick conversation. Which of the three boys are fit? They seemed to dovetail their injuries beautifully, and it was okay. Bundee with Robbie, not ideal, was the worst case scenario, or else it was a very good case scenario. And if the three of them were fit on those rare occasions, it was amazing. So, are we light? Bundee getting to an age, Robbie looking leggy, Garry getting to an age, or is it just a 12? Like, is Garry fine? Are we?
Well, I think off the back of the summer, you'd have to be concerned with the concussion issue with Garry. Hopefully, that's in the past now. But the number of concussions he's had over the last few seasons, having to pull himself out for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Do you want to have that carrying with no real depth established behind him?
So who is behind him?
That's the thing. We've got to uncover that. So
there's no one.
It's not that there's no one. There's just it's a substantial step down. Like Hugh Gavin is someone coming through in Connacht. You've got James Hume up north alongside Jude Postlethwaite, who played a lot for Ulster last year. And then within Leinster's ranks, Hugh Cooney would be someone who I would earmark as a potential 13, but someone who's only played.
Dan Kelly has come into the mix.
Dan Kelly, of course,
once for England, but is now Irish qualified.
Okay, that's interesting. But is the gap so that if Henshaw, got up to speed again, and if Bundee was up to speed again, come Chicago, if Ringrose was having a concussion concern or any kind of injury concern, is the gap behind Ringrose as an out-and-out 13 such that you'd say, Bundee and Robbie, you're in?
No, I think you need real speed at 13 now to defend. How quickly the game moves. Okay. You need someone who can turn particularly well, and that's where I would be less concerned with Bundee because the power that he offers, it's not like that's going to go anywhere. And with the South Sea Islanders as well, like the sheer power that these guys have. You see Man Anu still going, and he's 43.
Yeah.
So I think Bundee is going to be an integral part of this Irish team up until this World Cup.
He's a heavyweight who can still throw a punch.
He did indicate after the third test, he did indicate that this might be his last season.
Bundee,
yeah. Now I'm sure Andy Farrell will be sitting down with him and trying to convince him to keep going. But there is that prospect that he's 30. Was he 36 now? 35, 36?
35.
35. Like Robbie, like the age profile of the four that have backboned is worrying because when those three weren't there, Stuart McCluskey would come in and they would readjust really well. Now there was one time in Rome with McCluskey and Bundee and it didn't go well at all because that was a little bit too slow. But they've always had the luxury of being able to shift Robbie to 13. But on the basis of what we've seen the last 2 weeks, which is he's just come back from an injury, I'm not sure he has the legs for 13 at the moment. So I do think I think there will be conversations trying to get Bundee to the World Cup.
Okay.
But you can't rely on that.
No, and you can't do what we did at the last World Cup and expect Bundee to play 4, 5, 6 games in a row.
Yeah.
He probably has 60 good minutes in his legs now. Depending on the opposition, depending on the style of play of how the game unfolds. But we need to build out that depth chart there. Fingers crossed someone like Garry does stay fit.
So say for a second he's not, of the Hugh Gavin, James Hume, Postlethwaite, whoever else you want to mention.
Yeah.
We're done with New Zealand and
Jamie
Chicago.
Osborne isn't
Jamie Osborne.
Okay.
Stu McCluskey is someone who could come back in. Like
at 13.
Not at 13.
Yeah, so I'm asking 13. Yeah. Say Ringrose is out and we have Chicago and you're Andy Farrell.
You've also got so Osborne will be right up there,
yeah.
But we've no fullback because Hugo Keenan's out till Christmas. So that's another added complexity.
If we had Hugo Keenan, would it be Osborne?
I think. Well, Osborne played 13 for the Lions in that one game he played for them alongside Owen Farrell and looked really sharp. I think Osborne can play 12, 13 or 15 pretty comfortably, and I think he's one that they want to get. Like he went on the Lions tour for a reason, like Clarkson.
Okay. So
I think he's going to be starting against the All Blacks. He's got an injury at the moment, but he's back this week.
Yeah.
Where he plays for Leinster the next 2 weeks will tell us an awful lot about where he's going to fit into the...
I think 12 is going to be his best position going forward. Can he play 13 and do a job? He has enough speed, but we saw when he played on the wing, it
didn't work.
Turning, now you're coming up against the best in the world.
No, but he was out of sync with teammates at times.
Yeah. One thing that I think could potentially solve that is Hansen at 15. We know how much Farrell loves him, having him in the team. His ability to integrate himself into a back line he's one of the best backs in the world at doing that. But if you were to have Tommy O'Brien and Hansen in that back three, you probably lose a bit in your kicking game. But I think that's a back three that would really excite me.
Okay.
I think it is a flaw of the Farrell approach where he generally picks his best team for every game. That it does, and he does tries to keep players going as long as he can because he sees the value in them, and he doesn't necessarily see. He said it last year that we're not New Zealand, South Africa, or England. We don't have a huge broad depth of players. I mean, if he'd capped Antoine Frisch when he was playing for Munster, we'd have a ready-made 13 who has been capped for France, but he didn't. He was like, this guy has to earn. We never even had him in the squad. So even Jean Klein, Jean Klein could be available in the second row ranks if you just given him one cap. Now that's cynical, but that's the way a lot of teams would go. And I think Frisch offered something completely different. So if you have 3 players who've nearly all got 100 caps, none of them have hit that mark, but they're all heading that direction. And you've nothing beneath, and they're all over 30 now, and you've got everyone else has less than 10 or less than 5 even. You are running a risk. Now you presume has a spreadsheet in his office, and he is working off a depth chart, and he has a plan for it. But there is coming a time where all 3 are not going to be available, and we're looking at going into a big test this November because he has taken every game as a must-win. That we're going to go in with a light-looking centre part.
And are you a bit worried about Henshaw at the moment, or?
Yeah, I'd have my concerns about. He's played a lot of rugby over the course of a long career. He's a young man, but a little like Wayne Rooney in football. He started very early. He was capped as a teenager. Only 4 players have been capped as teenagers for Ireland in the professional era. He's one of them. Joe Schmidt saw him and said, this guy can stop Jamie Roberts. And he put him in that 12 jersey. And he has run a lot of hard lines over and over again. He has made a lot of tough tackles. And his body has taken an enormous amount of punishment over the years. And the signs were there last year when that one incident that screams out at me is when he got a one-on-one with Emmanuel Miafu in about 25 metres of space against France, and he didn't back himself to go on the outside. Whereas a year previously, 2 years previously on the Lions tour, he was running these beautiful arcing lines and getting up to a full sprint. Like, he's a former fullback. And that, to me, was like, does he not trust his speed anymore? I'm not saying that after a good pre-season, put that injury to good use, that he can come back and get a second wind.
Yeah,
we've seen players do it over and over again, but it's been a slow start to his season. So there's definitely, I think, a question mark, but nothing. He's proven himself over and over and over again, and the big game temperament, all the hard stuff is there, but your body can only take so much, and he's been asked to do a tough job, so there's a bit of having to prove himself, and I'd say he'll be relishing that Munster game in 2 weeks' time to kind of, and he's getting a chance to start as well. He's making his mistakes on a tour to South Africa with the kids, so he's getting a chance to build into his season. Whereas we might see Ringrose this week, we might see Bundee the following week. The other lads are going to have one game before Chicago, which is a real problem for Ireland in terms of having momentum and rhythm against an All Blacks team who are in season. So there's a balance there for Farrell to strike. So it could play into Robbie could just play again this week, play well. Play against Munster, play well, and be in great nick for Chicago. But right now, he's looking like he's struggling.
I hear you. He's a track record of coming back with very little rugby and then having a big performance as well. So maybe benefit of the doubt, but I take your point.